Are we good to go? We are. I can see that it's been live for 8. We are. Good, 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 good. I was having a moment because I was like, is it actually live? Or have I mistakenly started things again? Just checking down here. Yay, it's telling me that on Discord. Yeah, on Discord we're good to go. So that's good. Yay, that's great. Cool. Sup, Blue Dinner Box? How are you going today? Hopefully you're well. Blue Dinner Box. There we go. That's better. I need to enunciate. I need to take some of the advice I give people with the reviews, where I need to say my words more clearly. But yeah, Sup Shredders. My name is Logan. Shredders. Sup Shredders. Oh, whatever. Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP live streams where today we're going to be checking out the top 5 tracks from Taylor Swift. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves Sup Flatliner Music. How are you doing? Hopefully you're well. This is checking out Taylor Swift's top 5 songs. Because it's always good to listen to a bit of Taylor Swift. I'm doing these weekly live streams at the moment on Sundays because I think it's good to kind of try and listen to music that is popular that you may not be as familiar with. If we get rid of the intro thing, because we're clearly into the swing of things now. And we're going to be listening through 5 of Taylor Swift's songs. Yeah, my weekend's going all right, man. It's been busy. I've been working 7 days straight with a mixture of different lesson and review services, but you know, it's good. Life's good. Can't complain. You know, I suppose it's good to be busy. Yes, just have a weekend next weekend, I suppose. But yeah, we're just going to be listening through 5 of these tracks from Blank Space through to Cruel Summer. A general disclaimer that just because Spotify thinks these are the top 5 doesn't necessarily mean that they are Taylor's best 5 tracks, but we will see how we go with them. Starting with Blank Space. Let's go. Let's do it. Off of the 1989 album.
Next mistake, love's a game, wanna play. No money,
interesting effect on the vocals.
I can read you like a magazine. Ain't it funny? Rumors fly, and I know you heard about me. So hey, let's be friends. I'm dying to see how this one ends. Grab your passport and my hand. I can make the bad guys good for a weekend.
So I want to just pause. I'm going to pause occasionally because I feel like that's a good way to sort of explore these tracks, just to point stuff out within reason as we go. Okay. Can you hear the little kind of cloud drum or little kind of like subtle sublime melodic percussion in the background there? It's like a very quiet marimba or something like that. It's a very interesting sublayer that I haven't really heard in any of the times I've listened to it passively through like reviews or anything, you know? Through like radio or anything like that, should I say.
Your name.
Great fade out there or fake out there where things are just her voice there. It adds prominence to that point.
Cherry lips, crystal skies. I could show you incredible things. Stolen kisses, pretty lies.
Interesting tone to the drums as well. They're kind of dope.
Find out what you want. Be that girl dressed like a daydream. So it's gonna be forever.
Great sub drop there, I suppose, going into this section.
Down in flames. You can tell me when it's over. If the high was worth the pain. Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane. 'Cause you know I love the players. And you love the game. 'Cause we're young and we're reckless. We'll take this way too
Great call and response with the vocals here.
you breathless, or with a nasty scar. Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane, but I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name. Boys only want love if it's torture. Don't say I didn't warn ya. Boys only want love if it's torture. Don't say I didn't warn ya. So it's gonna be forever,
Yeah, she's a good singer, right?
or it's gonna go down in flames.
I haven't really appreciated it, but she has got some chops.
Was worth the pain.
Not that she needs my validation, but still.
Lovers, they'll tell you I'm insane. 'Cause you know I love the players, and you love the game. 'Cause we're young and we're reckless. We'll take this way too far. It'll leave you breathless, or with a nasty scar. Got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane, but I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name.
So that was Blank Space. I mean, I think it's fairly sort of like straightforward in terms of what it's about. It's about Taylor talking about themselves as almost like a sadist with this boy. You know, all the ex-lovers she's had, leaving a blank space for them, this new one. The line, if we go to it, boys only want love if it's torture, is interesting. I'm wondering if that's more of a reference to her thoughts on how people consider her relationships to be, considering that, as I understand it, and I could be wrong about this. Let me know if I'm wrong about this. Apparently she used to like write a lot of songs about her exes. Not like obviously, but like she'd refer to them and stuff like that. And so maybe she's talking about that. I can't remember when this song came out. It keeps going to this. 1989. So if I do that, that's very weird. Blank space. What if I go to Lover and then back to that one? No, I'm playing around with it. I'm getting distracted. But it's really cool regardless. So I think that's what the track's about. So I what I tend to do in these live streams is I kind of yap. I do a lot of yapping. And they tend to go for hours because of it. So I want to try and be more succinct. So that's what I'm going to try and aim to do. I tried to as per the last live stream, to be fair, but this one as well, the one with Bruno Mars, because we've done Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars was last week, and we're here today with Taylor Swift. So clearly, Taylor Swift is a solid vocalist, very comfortable in a hidden chest voice. Blank Space is well sung. There are some interesting vocal melodies and ideas here. We stay within the major and minors, but also roll with some sort of bluesy chromatics at times. We explore our vocal range. We stack neatly on top of each other. There's nice use of double tracking. The vocals go out to the sides at some points. There's fantastic dynamic range there. And there's some parts where she just talks as well, like Nightmare Dressed as a Daydream or something along those lines. So there's a lot of effort by Taylor Swift to make her vocals compelling. And I think they clearly pay off. But I think they're done very well outside of her success. So I understand in part why people like the song because of that. I think also, though, there are some elements within this that are kind of fascinating, such as it's the drums. There's just a fantastic simplicity to the beats there. But like, there's variations to the snare patterns and stuff like that throughout. Great mixture of quarters, eighths, sixteenths, and triplets. But there's also relative simplicity if we go to the... But it's just the tones of the drums as well. It's not just that we have interesting rhythmic patterns, it's that we also have these production tops to be able to filter them or make them a little bit more sort of nuanced and to kind of make them stand out in a way that's very different experience depending on whether you're passively or actively listening, you know, because we're actively listening at the moment. Even little things like the drum beats and the patterns, which on face value seem relatively straightforward and easy to follow along with, there's some really cool little spicy stuff going on that kind of elevates it when you really focus on it. But it's also like the little sub layers and parts of like the verses where you have that dun, 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 those are very subtle little melodies and arpeggios that decorate as underneath the vocals that are very subtle. But if you listen closely, you kind of hear them and you're like, oh, there's an entire universe within there. And I appreciate that. There are some synths which are a bit more sort of bombastic in the chorus sections and stuff like that. And it's always very sort of like easy to sort of like follow along with those. It's clearly meant to have the sub layers for the verses to make them a bit less loud, and they're having the louder elements in the chorus to make it a bit bigger. But it's great that we have it, because initially I wasn't aware that was there. I think there are some parts as well where Taylor Swift, they just don't have anything behind them. Like I think in that interlude section or something like that, it's not melodic or harmonic. It's more sort of like percussive oriented. And it's great to sort of just have her voice be the color for that. They know how to stack their vocals and do some really interesting things there that make it enough. And you need to be able to sing well and also have the foresight and creative capacity to be able to allow that to exist. So I'm thankful for the fact that we just had so much compositional range within it, despite not having a super massive range of different instruments within it. I just feel like it's really well fleshed out regardless. So it's very poppy whilst also being sophisticated. And there are like cooler responses as we go along, and Taylor does develop and add more as we go. But ultimately, just, really solid first impression to actually listening to her work, kind of like we've reviewed, don't be wrong, like I'm aware that we've reviewed Taylor Swift's tracks, but I think this is one of the songs which I've heard a lot of and haven't really necessarily fully appreciated until now. And I think if this is a similar experience to the next 4 tracks, we're going to come out of this feeling very happy with it. I'm actually going to have a newfound respect for what Taylor Swift does. But yeah, I think the studio production as well is really tight. The clarity of the vocals, an interesting sort of phasing in parts there. The vocals had it's kind of a sheen to them. I'm not sure how they did that, whether it was just sung so well that it phased, or whether she had some tuning on it which made it phased. But either way, it's fine. I don't care if she's tuning. I think she can clearly sing well enough without it. And just the way that you've got that dynamic range within the performance, but that's a deliberate decision with sub layers on a mixing level as well. And so you have these interesting decisions there, taking stuff away and adding them, which helps with the dynamic range. But it's also nice to know that pumping, it kicks when it needs to, nice side chaining with the lower end, and really well fleshed out in the stereo, in the frequency spectrum, as well as in the stereo field. Again, with some of those vocal parts kind of go, and it kind of goes out like that, and she continues over top. So it's really positive start to proceedings here. I enjoyed Blank Space. I think it's a good song. So I can understand why she's successful on that part. Because this is, again, just to iterate, the top 5 on Spotify is also a chance for me to understand why these people are successful. Yeah. What have we got in chat? We've got Blue Dinner Box. This is probably one of my most listened songs in the past 10 years. I dig it. I think it's a great song to listen to. I understand why you like it so much. I always misheard the lyrics as "get along with Starbucks lovers." Same. Have you seen those videos they have on YouTube where they have the songs that have misheard lyrics, and they're often kind of funny. They have some for like rock and metal songs as well, which is kind of dope. And Flatliner Music says, yes, she can definitely carry some notes, and I'm assuming that's probably a comment on the relationship stuff. Blue Dinner Box says she really likes writing about her relationships. Good news is that her recent relationships lasts pretty long. I mean, congratulations to Taylor Swift on that. I think being one of the biggest pop stars in the world, or potentially in history, I'd say not so conservatively at this point, it would be difficult to have relationships. I think she's with Travis Kelce or something like that at this point in time. They seem pretty tight. That's good. And Flatliner Music says, anytime you write about your real life situations, it always makes it more relatable to the audience. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about trying to bridge the gap between making something that matters to you and also making it open enough so that it either plays into the public's perception of what they want to hear from you, or open enough that the audience can relate to it. I think if you can find the sweet spot in there, you've got yourself a career. And I think it's why it's one of those topics which has just persisted across, like relationships are like at least 80% of music, you know. I like when it's done in a way which is kind of done like this, which is sort of playing on herself and her reputation, but also making it sort of like pleasant to listen to at the same time without being sort of like without any animosity or rap. You know what I mean? It's good, but we've got Style. Track number 4, the 4th on the list. I don't think I've listened to Style before, so that's fun. I actually kind of unconditionally, I like this a lot. Good call and response.
I should just tell you to leave, cause I know exactly where it leads, but I watch us go round and round each time. You got that daydream look in your eye, and I got that red lip classic thing that you like, and then we go crashing down.
Alright, back and forth. Cool. I'll try not to pause too much, but am I to insinuate that Taylor Swift is kind of one of those variety box musicians where they have like lots of different sounds for each track within an album? Or does Taylor Swift do a similar style across an album? Because this is very different to the previous track, you know. We double track for volume. Nice. Nice. Oh, crying out. Interesting. So yeah, I think you Blue Dinner Box says song for Harry Styles. Flatliner Music says Styles out of style, clever. Yeah, I can put two and two together. I think we got this. So that was Style. Yeah. Leather Jacket. So yeah, this is Style by Taylor Swift. I think it's about the situation that maybe she was with Harry Styles. I mean, I wasn't aware that she got with Harry Styles. I'm kind of like surprised and not surprised at the same time. Not that I'm a connoisseur of vibes. I don't know if their vibes would match, but you know, it's not my business. Basically, this track I think is about them being on the road together and being in a toxic relationship and splitting up and getting back together. And I'm wondering when she says "Take me home" at the end, whether she's saying "Take me home, I don't want to do this anymore," or "Take me home just to kind of let's just do this again." I'm not sure. That's kind of interesting how it opens. So if that's their relationship they're describing there, but I also feel that it's sort of open enough that you could probably talk about other people or other people could sort of like relate it to themselves. So ultimately, I think it kind of fits into a similar purpose as the previous track that we had. So what do we think is done well here? I mean, it's a similarly competent performance vocally from Taylor Swift. You know, the similar. I'm going to try not to repeat the comments on certain things like the vocal quality or anything like too much because I feel like we'll be saying it every single time, kind of copy and paste. I like the parts we cry out and that "Take Me Home" part. I feel like that extra bit of oomph there is a new thing that's kind of nice. And I dig that. I dig that quite a lot because it's just a different way of expressing ourselves on the mic there. And it kind of seems a bit more sort of spontaneous and simultaneously pragmatic. So just hearing that difference in a vibe, the call and response as well that we have in certain lines there is well done. It develops it further. I think in terms of the track itself, the major leaning that we have on the chorus going back and forth between those two bass notes is kind of cool, and I like the chord note groove to it, and I think that we have an inherent catchiness to the melodies that are sung within those hook lines. But my favorite part of the track is actually the intro. I like the use of that kind of clean single coil guitar there, kind of strumming away in the background in the ether there with the kind of somber, moody keys and synth pads there. The chord note kicks moving forward, initiating a sense of constant progress, though in an uncertain direction. And it's just a kind of almost a melancholic feeling to it that I think contrasts neatly with the chorus section that we have in terms of key and also in terms of feel. But it adds a bit of variety there harmonically as well, and it's kind of fills out into a seventh extension that I think is kind of neat, you know. And the sound design as well, how with that bar on the side of the stereo field as well, it's just we have a track which is fleshed out well compositionally, and we're only like 15 seconds in, but we've already got the stereo field being filled up with interesting things. The stereo field not be taken for granted. And we have the double tracking of the vocals, I think, in the chorus section as well, just for a nice bit of additional dynamic range there. I think it's probably something we did in the previous track, but like it's nice to have that build. It's just like these are fundamentals that are adhered to and presented in a way that's very palatable. And we're left with a simultaneous feeling of expecting this kind of level, whilst also not taking it for granted. Again, it's one of those songs that you can enjoy, like just kind of vibing along to it, and then when you really pay attention to it, there's just a bit of nuance there that's a bit of kind of like an Easter egg, you know? Like here, there's like little kind of that kind of guitar lick there. There was a nice bit of additional development from the picked guitar parts that we had were a bit minimalist earlier. So it's nice that we did develop things like that. And there's like these subtle kind of like sparkly arpeggios in the ether there, some sort of sub layers, and there's other little bits of ear candy that I might have missed. But that's the beauty of it, is that with this track style, we are able to put those in to give it inherent replay value. But I think it still kind of matches a sort of an electronic feel to some of the synth tones that we had in Blank Space. And so, like, while they're again very different tracks, the purpose it kind of matches. It is a variety box feel to it, this album, but yeah, it's clever. It's clever music. Production wise, I think, again, similar comments to previous. When you have a musician at Taylor Swift's level, you assume that the studio production will be second to none. You would at least hope for that, if not expect that. It was a ballsy, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, it's a ballsy move to have that chorus kind of have a similar feel going into the last part of the track as a final note. But I think that because Taylor Swift continued to articulate further her vocals on top of it and add additional bits of intrigue on the mic, it made that final chorus a bit more unique and added more of a reason for it to exist. It didn't feel like we were exaggerating or anything was superfluous, although it would have needed to have either been a different additional vocal take, arguably, or like another lead instrument or another bit of exploration on that. We have pauses and stuff in different parts of the track as well to kind of spruce it up. But ultimately, I think this is probably my favorite of the two tracks so far. And it's nice to hear a song that I haven't heard from Taylor Swift before. And the reason I say that is I think that you kind of struggle not to have heard Taylor Swift's music if you have never been out in public before. Or, you know, just if you're on the internet or in and around media or anything like that, just because of how big Taylor is. Was that wordplay or was it flatliner music? That's cool, man. The hard leather jacket part. Take me on, take on me. Nice. And Blue Dinner Box says she kind of matched Harry Styles at that time, One Direction era. That makes more sense. I mean, I do have to remember that this album was recorded 11 years ago. It was released on the 1st of January 2014. Isn't that wild? I know I seem like such an old man, but 2014 was 11 years ago. The global financial crisis was 17 years ago. A child born in the financial crisis would be almost old enough to drink. You dropped your 30th CD. That's crazy. Yeah, you're prolific. You're prolific. Some of you guys that I've reviewed or worked with, there was another person named Westchester who like legit had released thousands of songs. It was just a thing they did. They thousands of songs. And I reviewed a lot of them when I started reviewing music. And it was cool. It was so unfiltered. A lot of it was kind of zany and some of it was kind of hard to follow along to. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. It was an interesting journey. And I wish you the best of luck in choosing what to send through. It'd be good to hear more of your music. In the meantime, we have Fortnight featuring Post Malone. Now, I haven't listened to anything off of the Tortured Poets department. To be fair, I haven't really ever actively listened to Taylor Swift. That is not out of me wanting to be edgy or like, look at me, I'm special. I just haven't. But this is off of the album, Fortnight featuring Post Malone, track number 3 for today. It's nice to hear her in her lower range.
There we were, forever running to you. Sometimes ask about the weather. Now you're in my backyard. Turn into good neighbors. Your wife waters flowers. I wanna kill her. All my mornings are Mondays, stuck in an endless February.
I like the side vocals though, they're kind of cool.
Miracle, move on, drug. The effects were temporary, and I love you. It's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. But I touched you, and for a fortnight there we were, forever running to you. Sometimes ask about the weather. Now you're in my backyard. Turn into good neighbors. Your wife waters flowers. I wanna kill her.
I like the synth work. The tones are interesting.
We were together running to you. Sometimes comment on my sweater. Now you're at the mailbox. Turned into good neighbors.
The kind of Game Boy synth on the side was kind of neat.
I wanna kill him. I love you. It's ruining my.
How does Travis feel about the "my husband is cheating, I want to kill him" thing? Like, is that when she was with Travis or after it? How does Travis feel? I mean, not that it's really any of his business, I suppose, to an extent, but like, how does. It's a brave move getting with Taylor Swift. You know, like, considering the fact that she's written these songs about people she's been with in the past.
I touched you for only a fortnight. I touched you. I love you. It's ruining my life. It's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. I touched you. I touched you. But you won't pick up another fortnight lost in America. Moved to Florida, buy the car you want, but it won't start up till I touch you.
So that's interesting. That was Fortnite featuring Post Malone. I don't know how to feel about this one. I think that there are some things I enjoy and some things I'm sort of curious about. I think that this is, you know, you talk about. I'll go through the chat first. Just to kind of give context to it. So Blue Dinner Box says, this album is quite a mixed reception. I have heard as such. I'm glad that Flatliner likes their tone on it though. Blue Dinner Box says, but still shocked by the fact that she pulled out a 31 songs album while touring. That is phenomenal. That's just, I suppose, shows their work ethic is just absolutely insane. Well done to them for being able to do that. You know. Most likely before Travis. Fair. We'll go with that. And then finally, for a lot of people, the album is literally a Tortured Poets reading session by Taylor Swift. What is the Tortured Poets? Is it a thing? Is it a thing and she's making songs about it? Is that it? Is this not based on like original material? Is this based on the thing and it's her version of it? Either way, it seems like it's about two people that had a fling and they were very intimate. And what's happened now is that they've had that fortnight and now they're separated and now she wants to kill the guy's wife and now she wants to kill her husband. And they're basically trying to sort of break each other up and move to Florida and get a car. And the car won't start until she touches him. Yeah, Dead Poet Society. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know anything about it, so I might Google that on my own time. But it's, hang on, Dead Poets Society. Oh. Hang on. The movie reminds us that I found a thing on Google. I'm going to read it, okay? What is the main message of Dead Poets Society? According to Medium.com, the movie reminds us that love gives us the strength to face challenges. Another big theme in the film is freedom. Freedom to think for yourself, to express your ideas, and to live how you want. The boys are encouraged to break free from the expectations placed on them and make their own decisions. Is that what they're kind of getting at? Is like getting together despite the expectations of being with the people that they're with and kind of moving on with their lives in Florida? Yeah. Because I think there's a movie called The Dead Poets Society. I think that might be what we're talking about. I'm not sure. But either way, that's what I think this track is about. And so, what do we think's done well here? I think that Post Malone, I haven't heard any of his stuff in a while. I think, as I understand it, he went in like a country direction. He moved away from kind of like the hip hop and poppy kind of stuff and went in a very kind of country direction. And I think that his tone of voice works here. Very much being supportive of Taylor Swift as opposed to trying to sort of like be, I think, an equal partner in it. And I think that his harmonies work well alongside the melancholy from what Taylor Swift is putting forward. It's a very kind of somber, insistent piece that kind of keeps you moving forward, but in a way where it just sounds kind of sad. I mean, like, there is that similar sort of synth sequencer aesthetic we've had with the previous track there. And I mean, when was this released? 10 years later. So there are some instrumental sort of similarities that we have. Fortnight featuring. There we go. We can just click on that. For featuring Post Malone. It's an interesting track to have as the first one off of an album because I think that this is actually, this is the very first song. The song sounds quite like Post Malone's another song, forget the name. Yeah, maybe. I feel you on that. But I think that Taylor is very, at this stage of her career, in 2024, is clearly very comfortable on the mic. And they're trying to sort of sound like the story that they're telling there. And I think they express themselves well. It's a very wistful, mature performance, I think, from people that are genuinely longing for something that they cannot have. And it's terrible. But I think that the performance is reasonably compelling. And I don't know if I enjoyed hearing it. I mean, it's like the music is pleasant. The actual story is kind of intense, I don't think I benefited from hearing the story, but I feel that if it's nonetheless meaningful for them, then that's what matters. So, the decisions with the drum kits and the synths and like the interesting sort of like one-offs or kind of stabs that you have on the sides of the stereo field, maybe inferring points of nostalgia like the Game Boy sort of like sound on the right side. We have flutters in the stereo field that decorate. But also the main motif or pull behind it out in the verse section is very sort of very minimalist, and I feel like there was more work done with some of her more for her older stuff, I mean, there are those like kind of interesting like backing synths and sort of like almost glacial tones there that provide an kind of an interesting soundscape to it and make it seem a lot emptier than it is. And it glows at points. There is dynamic range again with the use of the different instruments to decorate the frequency spectrum, which I think is another staple of their success, is knowing when and when not to do that. But I also don't necessarily know that it has like I don't know if it has the same amount of life to it as previous tracks I've heard from Taylor Swift. I'm sure she had a lot of these songs in her pocket. Might be why the reception is mixed, because it's a mixed bag and not cohesively put together all at once. Yeah, it's an interesting decision to make here. I think that it's simply it's like a painting that you appreciate for what it is, and you know that there has been effort put in to make it a compelling sort of a viewing experience, and you can tell that it's meaningful to the person who's made it, but you don't necessarily relate to it at all, and you kind of look at it from a distance and go, yeah, I understand what's going on, but I don't necessarily vibe with it. I think that's basically my, like I go to parts of it and I appreciate it, but then I think it's also worth noting that I'm having to be reminded of certain components in the song literally after hearing it. The main idea or concept within this track that comes to mind is the constant pulsing of that synth bass with the drums, with the harmonies there. A lot of the other color is maybe the replay value coming in the mid to upper ranges there. And I think that the kind of subtle kind of tone of the drums here almost makes it a bit like smooth enough to get lost in and to be soothed by, but not necessarily to be excited by. Still, I appreciate the musicality of it, and I think that it's an interesting distinction between the albums so far. So I suppose to try and put this in perspective for this session, if I was to decide between the 1989 album and the Tortured Poets, I'd probably want to listen to 1989 more than the Tortured Poets, so personally. And that's kind of sounds a bit brutal, I think, because instinctively for me, it's because I've heard that one track and don't feel the need to hear more. And that sucks. That sucks. I don't want to say stuff like that because I know how, like, we had August before Cool. I think that I remember this was the time where Taylor Swift had to re-record a lot of stuff, wasn't it? We're going to listen to August next. Thank you for the reminder, Blue Dinner Box. I appreciate that.
Salt air and the rust on your door. I never needed anything more, or whispers of are you sure? Never have I ever before, but I can see us lost in the memory.
See how it kind of goes doof? It's like this kind of interesting soundscape with all those different little layers on the sides, and you get sucked in with the softer vocals and everything like that. And then there's like a pulse, and then you're like lifted up by it.
August slipped away into a moment in time, 'cause it was never mine. And I can see us twisted in bed sheets. August slipped away like a bottle of wine, 'cause you were never mine.
And I love the intricacy of those guitar parts as well.
You're back beneath the sun, wishing I could write my name on it. Will you call when you're back at school? I remember thinking I had you, but I can see us lost in the memory. August slipped away into a moment in time, 'cause it was never mine.
And see how we're like filtering things to kind of go out into the endless sort of like void. I love that sound design. I love these creative production decisions here. This is effortlessly more engaging for me. And maybe I would just need to have another listen through that previous track we listened to with Post Malone, but there is contrast and nuance here and adjustments that I appreciate.
And I can see us twisted in bed
Doesn't necessarily match the vocals though. I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
Back when we were still changing for the better, wanting was enough. For me, it was enough to live for the hope of it all. Cancel plans just in case you call and say meet me behind the mall. So much for summer love and saying us, 'cause you weren't mine to lose. You weren't mine to lose. No. But I can see us lost in the
Good job
memory.
taking the bass out there.
Slipped away into a moment in time, 'cause it was never mine. And I can see us twisted in bed sheets, all get sipped away like a bottle of wine, 'cause you were never mine.
And you hear that little drum fill there on the snare? I don't know why I'm appreciating this more. I don't think I've gone into boomer territory yet. But I feel like I'm starting to get there with a lot of the AI music that's being sent in with the reviews and stuff like that, you know?
'Cause you were never mine.
But that's another conversation for another day.
Mine. But do you remember? Remember when I pulled up and said get in the car and then canceled my plans just in case you called? Back when I was living for the hope of it all, for the hope of it all. Meet me behind the mall.
Is that a saxophone? Dude, that's beautiful, man.
Remember when I pulled up and said get in the car and then canceled my plans just in case you called? Back when I was living for the hope of it all, for the hope of it all, for the hope of it
And it just opens up with a string section. I think this is unconditionally, like, probably my favorite song from today. I adore it. I think that it's a beautiful song, August from Taylor Swift, made for the COVID time. The fact that they managed to pull this off was just tremendous. It's just so nostalgic with the story. Like, salt air and the rust on your door, I never needed anything more. Whispers of are you sure, never have I ever before. Just the wordplay, the lyricism, talking about a love that was temporary, love lost, you know, twisted in bed sheets, August sipped away like a bottle of wine. It's so vivid with the sense of nostalgia for a time that I personally don't remember having. It took me way too long to get my driver's license. I didn't have that experience driving dates around as like a teenager or whatever like that, or like even a young adult. But it's just crazy to think. It's just crazy to think that we've had such a similar story in a lot of these songs, but they're presented differently each time. I think that is one of Taylor Swift's strengths. You know, Blue Dinner Box says people need this cut story during their time, which is her biggest strength. Absolutely. 1000%. I think that's another one of her strengths. I think these stories are the epitome of relatable for a lot of people. They're her opening up whilst also allowing other people in. But I think what really helps this song to work is the progression and the songwriting here. you listen to different parts of this 4-minute 21 track with a generous, you know, her popularity reputation really skyrocketed after this one and the one after, a sister album. I'm not surprised. It's fantastic music. You listen to different parts of the song, and they are not the same. There are adjustments. Like, we're going to do this now. We're going to start from the start. And you've got these kind of little nuanced guitar parts and these picked strummed elements there on different sides and different components looped or like kind of like progressed. And you've got Taylor kind of nice and subtle, and then you get the fullness of the tone in about 30 seconds later and the bass response there. But there's nothing too intense or heavy happening immediately. It's still very kind of like breezy and fluffy and pleasant to listen to. And there's moments where things pause and there's some little kind of pumpy drums and stuff like that. But it's kind of wistful, but it's like a major kind of oriented type of wistful. I think I more resonate with this one because it's bittersweet in a major key, where it's instead of being like, oh, I hate my husband and want to kill them so that we can be together, and it's kind of toxic, despite whatever, regardless of the context. It's more like, I appreciate what we had. I'm sad about it. But these memories are kind of like summer memories. It's like a kind of there's a sweetness there that I think it worked well at that time and that people appreciate and can look back on positively. You know, I think that Taylor Swift is at her best when she writes music that people want to hear for good reasons. And back when we were still changing for the better, when we were still growing up, etc. It's this kind of innocence with the major key, with the brightness of the guitar, the sus to a major chords there. They're very kind of like gentle, the march of the drums with the snare roll patterns and everything like that. The fact that things keep grooving and pushing along. There's no aggression or menacing or any harsh edges or anything like that instrumentally or compositionally. It's very kind of like gentle the entire time. And like sometimes the song pulls back a little bit and it almost seems like we're kind of getting sucked into the dream or things are fading away. And it's almost like near the end when Taylor Swift kind of bows out, you know, after For the Hope of It All, you just get that full flurry of the entire section there, that final release there, that acceptance of the life that they had that does not exist anymore. And it's so wonderful to listen through. You got those guitars and those strings introduced and they kind of interact with each other, and there's a romanticism and a sort of vintage kind of tone to it that I think makes everyone feel about 10 or 20 years younger. And it's like a multi-generational thing, which is part of why I think it works so well. It would have been more popular, I think, because a lot of the music from like the 2014 and stuff like that might have been aimed at the younger audience here. I think Taylor Swift now is more kind of widening or broadening it for her current fan base or the people that went with her alongside the younger and older generations now. For better or worse, you know. It seems like the Tortured Poets was a little bit edgier in certain respects, but that's totally fine. You know, again, creative music is music. But just, I think, as a final comment, to allow ourselves to be able to have that instrumental kind of breadth in that last range, to not feel the need to have more context at the end, to allow things to fade out with her having said her piece, is a sophisticated, mature response and a decision that I respect and appreciate. And I'd say this is probably my favorite song from Taylor Swift. I think Folklore looks like a really cool album. And I have a lot of love and respect for that. I think that it's a great piece there, which just the way it's written with the variety of different string, bass, drum, sort of like violin, and the saxophone as well that we had in certain elements, that kind of breathy kind of freshness there was just awesome. And the studio production was tight as well. It had like sub layers and some main elements, and it would kind of filter things to take them away. And then there was a ceiling that was there the entire time. And it went up into it. And it was dope, man. It was really, really cool. I like the fact that we didn't squeeze things too much and that we continued to lift. Very satisfying. Very satisfying piece. So yeah, August. We've got one more track though. One more. So we've got Cruel Summer. Track number 1, her most popular song, the top song on Spotify.
Fever dream high in the quiet of the night. You know that I caught it. Bad, bad boy.
Oh, vocoder's on the side. Nice.
Know that I bought it. Killing me slow out the window. I'm always waiting for you to be waiting below. Devils roll the dice, angels roll their eyes. What doesn't kill me makes me want you more. And it's new, the shape of your body.
They mixed the vocals differently there. That transition was slick there. Absolutely. I can't pause, I want to, but it's just so smooth. No filler. And more staccato in this part with the hi-hats. Did you hear that bit of vocal fry? That little bit of vocal fry, that was stunning. That was actually really cool. I love that kind of punch to it, that kind of smack to it. Looks up grinning like a devil. It's just so dope. And back down to that lower range with the synth sequencer. And the vocoder. I like the vocoding synth. Like the work that was doing now. The yeah. Yeah, no, that was really cool. I have a newfound appreciation for Cruel Summer. So I think before we go any further, what I would recommend is that if you have not listened to these tracks through headphones, I would recommend listening to these tracks through headphones. It's a completely different experience to listening to them either passively when you're going places or on malls or even at your house, or listening to them through speakers. It's a very different experience. I'd recommend it if you haven't done so already. You'll appreciate yourself for it. And with these headphones that I'm wearing, these are especially unforgiving headphones. These are not headphones that are meant to accentuate the best possible sounds or frequency responses within a track. They are there for mixing purposes. So the fact that these songs sound so good is testament to the production quality that at this point with Taylor Swift, I think being a billionaire, if I'm not mistaken, I think that, yeah, no, we're good. We're good. I think we're good. It's expected, but yeah. I understand why this is so successful. I still prefer Autumn to this, but Cruel Summer, I think, is a close second. Is it, though? Yeah, I could go away with it. I think it's good. Another thing people always talks about is how Taylor Swift writes the bridges in her songs. See, what does that mean? Does that mean that it's... How much of the song does she write? How much of the song does Taylor write? Is it unusual for her to write the bridges in her songs? I'm genuinely curious. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm wondering what that is, whether it's a normal thing for people to not write their own bridges or not. I think part of this exciting journey we're on, listening to these pop musicians with their top fives, is learning how much they're involved with their music. Some tracks that I've checked out or been teaching the students that I work with have like 6 different people involved. That's cool. She basically wrote her every song. Yeah, so then Taylor Swift deserves her success. I think that if you write your own music, you deserve your success. And if you have people helping you out with it, then your team deserves your success. I think that it's great. But what is this song about? Fever Dream High in the Quiet of the Night, you know that I caught it. Yeah, so basically it's about a boy that she's attracted to, but a bad boy, and I think he takes her for granted, and it's a cruel summer because she wants stuff with him that she can't have, and she keeps going around to his place, even though he grins like a devil, and it's, you know, I'm always waiting for you to be waiting below, outside the window or something like that. It's cool. It's just sort of, you know, either teenage or young adult kind of infatuation, messing with the wrong people, learning hard lessons kind of stuff that Taylor Swift talks about, you know, an upbeat version of August's story. Yeah, I'd get behind that. I'd get behind that. That makes sense to me. So I think that this is more sort of like, it is upbeat. It's an intense story that I think isn't trying to dwell too much on the fact that she's frustrated by it. It's more just an energetic display of those feelings. I think that the instrumental choice matches the frustration she feels, and I think that that's good. I like the vocal fry and the devil part. That devil line was dope. Grinning like a devil, I thought that was fantastic. The changes in the way that we communicate with the listener are cool as well. We have different voicings for different parts of the track, in addition to different combinations of instruments, which is kind of neat. And I like the fact that they're very distinct, very expressive, and we are comfortable with overdubs. Da da na na na. We got this kind of interesting like slides and kind of like nuances and the tails of stuff, and it's very high level of attention to detail to it. If I was more cynical, I would say it's almost manufactured to sound like that, but it's also, one, it's pop, and two, if you're trying to write a song that is catchy than any genre across any situation, if you're trying to write a good song, anything is manufactured. So that's fantastic. It's really great effort on the mic there. More of what I would expect from Taylor Swift at this point. I liked again, I mentioned I like the vocoder as a call and response as well. And I think generally the mic work was very polished. We have more of those dun 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 synths that are like those sequences, the bum 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 bum, that are in most of her tracks. And they're just a nice kind of comfortable floor and foundation for her more up-tempo, upbeat work. I think the synth pads and the sort of sparkly elements we had in Elements of the chorus were great too. The drum beats had an interesting kind of like movement with a lot of the kick, snare, and sort of cymbal patterns. There was some really fast stuff for a bit of kind of chirpiness. And when there was less of the fluffy stuff in the mid-range, the drums were more percussive and added a kind of more of a staccato, kind of short feel to it, which made it a bit more bouncy, which was kind of neat. You know, like, and there's like the vocals go around the stereo field and surround you in the headphones and move from left to right there. But it's also that we have a nice sort of stable, reliable foundation for the root notes in the low end as well. But it's like also very constant with its kind of energy and intent there dynamically. It's less varied than August by far. It's definitely meant to be a track which is trying to get you as like efficiently as possible through those 3 minutes. And I think that that's good. I mean, it's right in this middle of the sweet spot between 2 and 4 minutes. I feel like it's well fleshed out and pronounced there. And I hear it and I go, you know, if you have those peaks and troughs, sometimes, especially as a single, it can be a little bit distracting. So we didn't want to have that here. So from a post-production perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, a song which has a lot of variety in terms of its percussive layers, the vocals as well. You have like lead layers that carry you through, distinct bass lines and chord progressions, certain elements of different instrumental makeups that make it more intriguing. And I think again, it's just a lot of the character comes from the way that Taylor communicates. A lot of the other parts in it aren't necessarily distinct to Taylor Swift, but that's never really been the vibe. Yeah, solid. And I like the mixture of sort of the 16th note hi-hats that we had at the end there with like Taylor kind of popping off with the last part there, kind of chanting away was sick. So post-production, similar comments to the other electronic tracks we've had throughout this. Similar feeling to it. Well done, nice and loud. Dynamic range through instrumental layers. There's room to breathe for the vocals. Very, very good. Yeah. So I think this has basically been the top 5 tracks from Taylor Swift. Blank Space, Style, Fortnight featuring Post Malone, August, and then Cruel Summer, which is off of the 2019 album Lover. So let's just sort of talk about the overall conclusion of this. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot going on here. So we've listened through these 5 tracks, and these are my sort of like overall thoughts on Taylor Swift's music from what I've learned from her today. I think that one of the strengths of Taylor Swift is her ability to not only tell stories about relationships from a variety of different angles. Usually there's some tension or drama simply because I think that's just inherently, like, it's what people want to hear, if we're honest. Like, a lot of people say they want to hear positive relationship stories, but it's less interesting than if you hear about, like, I don't know, like the struggle of someone in summer having, like, it's kind of a bad boy kind of messing them around, or like relating to having lost that love of like a temporary thing, having to grow up and falling apart, or the blank space with the exes thing, or Style, or even, like a Fortnight there where you want to sort of kill the other person's wife or something like that. Like people want that kind of drama in music, and what Taylor does is across a variety of different sounding songs manages to continue an inherent consistency with narrative that somehow does not become overplayed. I think that part of that is due to the way that Taylor Swift communicates. They can sing, they can talk, they can kind of rap in parts. They have vocoderish elements there. There's a bit of vocal fry occasionally. There are overdubs and mains and harmonies and all sorts and double tracking and all sorts of fun ideas that are put in place there. With even some interesting sort of like kind of like unusual, less common techniques that are done just to kind of play with the expectations of the listener whilst express the lyrics in a way that both makes sense for the track behind her or underneath her at the foundation of the backing, whilst also making each track unique. So I think that the vocals are clearly the highlight. They're very comfortable on the microphone. They're charismatic and energetic and interesting to listen to. And they're endearing, and the stories are relatable, hashtag. So the vocals, clearly they're part of why Taylor Swift is successful. I think it's also that we are kind of cognizant, I think, of the quote-unquote ambiance atmosphere and vibe of maybe the style of music that we're going for at the time. Because I can kind of hear the eras of pop music as we go through this. Like Style and Blank Space, like they had those kind of electronic elements there. Style more of a kind of a car driving kind of vibe with like the low-key synths, ensemble kind of chord note elements and everything like that. Blank Space with the electronic percussion and everything like that, and the synths and other layers there. Fortnite was kind of like a culmination of earlier elements there, and a bit more sort of moody and constant in a way that I don't necessarily know is unique instrumentally to Taylor Swift, but nonetheless was like kind of like cohesive with its textures and tones. August was probably the most adventurous track instrumentally for me across the board there, and I appreciate the combination of guitar, bass, drums, strings and saxophones. I think that was just a really beautiful song, and it was more explorative than a lot of the other ones I've heard. Cruel Summer being more of a return to form, I suppose, in comparison to the others, with like the vocoderish elements and the synth vocal, and the backings and the kind of the synth sequences. The synth sequences were in like three of them. Bum 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 bum. You know that we had that was like a staple of Taylor Swift stuff, and it's kind of a cool kind of groove, and in amongst a lot of interesting sort of like hi hat patterns there, kind of chirpy ones or 16ths or quarters or eighths there. And there was some interesting sort of like kick and snare textures as well that we had. With like blank space, for example, where we choose unusual sounds, but that stood out. And we had like sub layers, like little cloud drums and like blank space as well there. There were kind of things you'd only hear if you were actively listening to it. So there's like sub layers and main layers, and the music's typically very well fleshed out. To be credit to Fortnight, there were like some fun ideas where things kind of like sparkles and fluctuate, and you have a synth on one side that kind of go wow, and like we explored the stereo field there. And even though we had a consistency with the main theme, there was variety. There was variety there. The vocals still being the focal point there, with Post Malone's harmonies working well in a collaborative situation. So for me, I look at the way that Taylor Swift and Bruno Mars collaborate in their respective tracks. I feel like for Taylor Swift, she's the one. She is the one in charge, and people are helping her. That's the kind of vibe I get from Taylor Swift's collaborations. Whereas with Bruno Mars, it is far more kind of it's equivalent. With Rosé and Lady Gaga, you could kind of hear them both kind of like taking turns, and they worked with each other. It just seemed to kind of bounce off a bit more neatly there, and I don't know whether that's a controversial thing or not. It's just sort of a interesting sort of like dynamic shift here. Yeah. So I think that if I go back to here, just because I want to make a note here, we have Blue Dinner Box saying, I feel like another problem about our recent songs is that they are made for young audiences, and I'm not that young anymore. Same. I think that is a curse. It's a curse because it's almost like if a lot of the music on August, the album from August, what was that one? You know, like if that was Folklore was more of a kind of attempt at kind of like maturing and kind of developing ourselves and opening ourselves up to a wider audience, maybe we are sort of firmly anchoring ourselves with the Tragedy of the Poets one back into going for a more younger mindset, which I think kind of was a mistake. But I think for Taylor Swift, it's kind of a dangerous position that they're in because they've already gotten to the tippy top. So where do they go from here? How does Taylor Swift grow as an artist? She's already perfected herself. I mean, a lot of the comments I've made here, I think songs like August as well as Cruel Summer showcase that they have a wide variety of different styles that they can go for. And if you're talking about the 2017 album, unsurprisingly, has way more hip-hop elements. I think that it's simply trying to find a way for Taylor Swift to be unique outside of her music. And I would say, in a very sort of maybe a spicy way, if I did not have Taylor Swift's vocals in a song, I wouldn't know that it was her instrumental. I wouldn't know that it was her song. I wouldn't know how to tell that she was the one who made it. Aside from the synths. Taylor Swift is interesting because you need Taylor Swift in order for her music to be what it is for obvious reasons. But I don't know if there's other stuff that's distinct about it. I think, but I suppose it's just a very kind of like basic thing to say. It's maybe not even particularly fair. That's the same with most artists. I think I'll continue forward though. She is her brand, and it's very well calculated, and it's been implemented really well. And so I suppose moving forward, the tracks are unique to an extent with the subject matter being similar, with the vocals being varied enough. And it's tight. And also going back to the conclusion here, yeah, I remember Taylor Swift's country music. I remember her country music quite vividly. I think there was some really fantastic stuff in there. I think that was more unique, arguably, than a lot of her pop music. It's just that I think for Taylor Swift, they got to a point where Taylor Swift was like yeah, hey, let's make pop music and continue to grow our brand and explore. And it's almost like I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Swift was having to look back at her country music and go back to it with the way that pop music is now with country music. It's an interesting circle where it was rarer to have. I think Taylor Swift got famous in part because her country music that she was doing was so different to a lot of the music that was being produced in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It's surreal that like we're doing a full circle and we've switched places like that. But the thing is, I think Taylor's in a tough spot because what do they do now? How do they learn from the tortured poets if it was a mixed response? And I think that's probably not for me to say, it's for her to figure out. But I think at this point, when you're kind of at the pinnacle, one of the biggest musicians in the world in your genre, I don't know what she could do differently to improve. I feel like she's got enough music in there that it's all fleshed out, and anything more is simply, especially if she's in a happy relationship, what does she talk about? What is her career going to be from now on? When you talk about subjects like this, like where does it go? Yeah. I'd agree with that, Blue Dinner Box. I think her biggest strength is just songwriting and storytelling. Her lyricism is solid. And I think it's a reasonably unique thing to have someone completely in charge of their own music in the industry. So I commend Taylor Swift for that. So I move forward with this, as I've said several times. I don't know why I'm saying I'm moving forward now. I'm saying that all the time now. Ultimately, thematically, in terms of the identity of the various tracks, they make a lot of sense. They're pleasant to listen through. The studio production is, of course, commercial grade. The recording of the vocals, the synths, the bass, the guitars, the drums, the saxophones, everything else involved is fantastic, with rises and sublayers and filtering and panning decisions and automation and vocoding. All the toys. All incredibly well done. And so you basically have a musician that has kind of nailed it in the most, I suppose, basic, fundamental way. I understand why that brand is strong and why people love him. And my favorite song from today was off of the Folklore album, titled August. And that's my review of Taylor Swift's top 5 tracks on Spotify. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and our Spotify page. And stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I want to thank, just before I go, I want to thank Flatlining Music as well as Blue Dinner Box for tuning in and hanging out as we discuss this. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll catch y'all in the next live stream. It will probably be I don't know who will check out next weekend, but it will be another weekend of like the request live streams on a Saturday. And then we'll probably do another musician on Sunday. Part of me wants to kind of do Jelly Roll or like maybe Post Malone or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. But anyways, catch you all on this live stream. Spider Hands out. 3, 2, 1. And